WTube! Hello, everybody. Welcome to a different Sunday night live stream. There's no Prestige Reef tonight. I've just spent the last minute trying to work out how to do it without the Prestige Reef Talk Show intro. But today, instead of Ryan's nonsense with boring LPS corals, we have two Acro keepers, Imran and Mo. Imran, Mo, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, good, thanks.
So Imran, some of you will recognise, and certainly the tank, because I did a tank tour with you.
I'm sorry, Alex. I'm about 5 seconds behind on the audio.
Yeah. So we're having connection issues. There's a delay between me, Mo, and Imran. So we might have to repeat ourselves a little bit. So you have to bear with us. But basically, this is going to be Imran and Mo talking about acros, basically, because Imran, you're a bit of a stickhead, right? Did you hear that?
Catch up in a minute.
Yeah, I can hear you on my YouTube. I'm literally 5 seconds behind.
But
funny. Yeah, bit of a stickhead.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I'll tell you what. I'll talk to Mo for a second, because I think you're working all right. Yeah, you can hear me good.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, because you get a delay on YouTube. So if Imran goes onto your StreamYard software, it should.
Are you on StreamYard?
Shouldn't have a delay. I'm on StreamYard,
Imran.
But I'm wondering if he's on YouTube.
I think he's on StreamYard.
Okay, I don't know why it's got a delay, because it usually delays onto the anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us about your tank.
The audio is not great. That's why I'm not listening to the StreamYard.
Yeah. Okay. Mo, tell us about your tank, because it's 8 foot. You're like an enormous Acro 8-foot tank, right?
Yeah, it's just there. Yeah. So this is about 4 foot of it, and then goes the other side of that pillar, and then there's a double door just there.
So this is it.
And yeah, that was a while ago. So it's 8 foot cube, 4 sides visible. The back, it goes in the back of it's there's a wall, and there's a hole in the wall, and my filter room's at the back, so the sump room's behind it, and I've got a sump and a frag tank behind it. Okay. So there's 8 foot by 8 foot by about 26 inches tall.
Okay. So you're Imran's uncle, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
I think I'm right in saying that you got Imran into. You've been doing this for a bit longer. You got Imran into it. You got him hooked.
A little bit. So you might not know, I used to have a SPS tank before in my previous house, and that was 6 foot by 8 foot by 3 foot tall.
Yeah.
And that was full of SPS. And when I was away a fair bit then. Imran used to look after it. And okay. So I used to tell him what to do and how to do it. And so he slowly worked out my system. So effectively, when I was away, he was running the system.
Okay.
So obviously, I think the bug bit a little bit, and then he set up a tank in his previous house, which is really nice. I don't know if you saw that one. That was just as nice as this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was probably on Ultimate Reef. Is it, Imran? Is your last tank on Ultimate Reef? He'll give us an answer in 5 seconds.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So my last tank is still on there. It was it's similar dimensions. It was just 5 foot, 1 foot smaller, 20 inches high, 2 foot back. I didn't have a remote sump though, so the sump was underneath the tank. So it just went 1 foot wide, longer this time.
Because your current tank is we did a tank tour with you a couple of months ago. I did a tank tour with you a couple of months ago, and you've got so that tank is a custom tank, and underneath it there's just an empty cabinet, and then you've got piping that runs across your garden into a spare room, basically a garage room, and that's where your sump is.
Yeah, that's right.
Here we go.
Yeah. So the pipe work goes. It's funny actually, because the pipe work runs on the other side of my garden, because I was going to put the tank on that side of the house, and then I decided that I didn't want it on that side, and I had to reroute the piping this way. So it actually goes around the houses basically to come back to this tank. So it's quite a long route that it runs, and that causes a lot of cooling in the winter, especially these last few months. It's been a bit of a killer with electricity.
Tell us a bit about your tank, how long it's been going, and how big it is.
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Tell us about the tank. How long has it been going? How big is it?
Okay, so I set up this tank in 2022. So it's been running for about 3 years now. In November, it was 3 years. And I had a bit of a tank crash about a year and a half into it. So it was a whole reset then. And that was, I lost a lot of my corals back then, about 80% of my SPS. I lost about 10 of my fish. I'm actually quite, my fish stocking is quite low at the moment. You probably can't see many fish in the tank right now. But I had a lot of fish, I lost a lot of fish. And so after that reset, it's been about a year and a half, so to what it is today.
And tell us, so basically what I think people are going to want to know is like your thoughts on how to keep Acro. So I've got a load of questions to go over and like main topics to cover, but tell us like what you think is important and why you have success.
Because he copies me.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I copy him.
Yeah. I do what Mo tells me to do. No, from his last tank, I did pick up a lot of tips and tricks. I killed a lot of his corals, and I helped him grow a lot of his corals as well. So I just kept it simple, really. The main thing is just do your basics really well. A lot of people are always looking for potions to get the best colors out of your corals, get the best growth. But, you know, if you stick to the basics, keep stability, good flow, good lighting, corals are going to thrive in those conditions.
So, and because in terms of lighting and flow, I actually don't think your flow is that crazy high. I think you've got, it's a 6-foot tank and you've got 2 MP40s and 2 MP60s. And I think in terms of lighting, your par is like 250 to 450. So high, but not crazy high.
Yeah, it's not crazy high. I've got 6 radions above it, XR30s, and I've got a Orphec bar at the front, just to get the spread of light across the tank. So I had 3 radions to begin with across the middle, and it was just creating a lot of shadowing on the SPS on the front and back. So I just went for 6 to increase that spread. So the spread of light is, I think, more important than the power that you're giving. As long as your power is, you know, between 300 to 500, I think you're good. Even 250 on some SPS is okay. Good flow, just make sure it's not direct flow. Just trying to get it as random as possible.
Because
like Mo's got is the ideal flow.
Go on, sorry, go on.
Yeah, but your par level, I mean, you hear people are running 800, 1,000 par, and it depends on your nutrient level. So what would be interesting, the questions that should be asked are, if they run really high par, ridiculous par, and you think, well, you know, I'm only running 300, 50, 400, I should be up at 700, 800. Well, then ask them what their nutrient levels are. If they tell you the truth, their nitrates will be up. Because I don't think you can run 800, 900 par and have a nitrate of, you know, a couple. Yeah, you got to have a nitrate of 2. And arguably, the bigger the tank, the higher the nitrate you need to get the nutrients. But you need to feed your corals for them to be able to take up the light. So for most tanks, 350, 400, 450 for SPS is absolutely fine. If you're running nitrates below, say 10, maybe 15, 10, and the phosphate of a 0.08, 0.01 or less, you know, 450 is absolutely fine. And then if you're running them higher, you need more light. So I think it's all relative. And then the more light you have, the more flow you need. And it's just the balance. And that's why tanks evolve and everyone's doing it very slightly differently, because you evolve your system to match what you've got. So, I mean, there's not one recipe to do it. It all comes out in the wash, but there is a sort of core, set of values that you need to sort of stick to keep everything stable, and then build on that. And I think that's the thing that people, shut down early or get frustrated or keep losing corals. And we all lose corals, but it's just just sort of sticking to the basics and building up from there. And the basics, as you know, is get your salinity right, monitor it, because none of us do, and then based on that, then you run your alk at whatever 7.5 to 9, 9.5 maybe, but I run at 8, 8.5. It's a safe middle ground. Your calcium 420, 440 ish. Doesn't matter. I don't, it doesn't have to be 420.
Keep it as
yeah. Don't let it drop below 400, really, 380, and then you've got to push it up. And then your magnesium 1250 to 1500, you're okay. And if you get those right and your salinity's bang on, your temperatures 25, 26, 27 if you really want to, but 25, 26 is, you're there or thereabouts. Then you just watch all your corals grow, and then based on that, if you run a par of 350, 450 for SPS, I think that's a good recipe. And then your nitrates, phosphates, 0.05, I suppose, if you're a smaller tank, to 0.1 for me. When I was setting up my tank, I had a phosphate of, I had a tank crash as well, but I had a phosphate of 2. What was my nitrate? 200 at one point. I had SPS in there. No algae. No, Imran saw it and you wouldn't believe it. But we measured it and it went through a fresh cycle. But at that point, I was running 850 par. I had my radions up on 85%, and I had 20 of them. So and then I followed Imran with this, dropped my nitrates, and Imran will tell you about that. I dropped my nutrients down, and then I slowly reduced my light, but not quick enough, and I burnt the corals at the top of my reef. So some of the millies at the top of my tank, they just got burnt because I was still running 650 par, and my nitrates dropping 200 to 100 to 50 to, when I got to about maybe 30, 40 nitrates, I was still running 650 par, and it was just too much. So I burnt millies. The corals lower down were okay. So that's you've got to strike a balance. And it's not, don't follow one thing. Don't, just because somebody's running at 600 par doesn't mean you should be running that. And you're much better off having, average of 400 or so for your SPS.
Because I often see people will choose, like, they'll watch a video or they'll speak to someone and that person will be running high nutrients or high par or something like that, and you'll pick and choose one thing, and you'll be like, that person's got more lights now, so I'll turn my lights up. But actually, what you're talking about is getting everything in balance, which is quite a lot of work and quite a lot of testing.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, that's what I said about if they tell you the truth about their nutrient level, because so it's all, it's a bit of bravado in the hobby. We all, and we all want to have low nutrients and massive par, and and our SPS going out of the water. And I think somewhere in between there, so if I said I've got 850 par, look at me, I've got 850 par, but I didn't tell you that I had 200 nitrates, and because everyone thinks, what, 200 nitrates, what?
You'd get judged.
So go and do a water change. But I've dropped them down serially since. But I because of that experience, I know what I can get away with. And I know what I can't get away with, and I know what the balances are between the various aspects of the system, because I just run multiple different levels. And that's the key, is balancing everything. That includes the flow. So if I got really high light, really low nutrients, and I'm blowing the pumps really hard, that my corals strip. And that's the problem I used to have when I first set up this tank, because a massive tank like this, the difficulty is getting nutrients into it to start with. It doesn't matter how much you feed, the corals just won't get fed unless you dump them all in one corner of the tank, and just feed in that one corner. Even then, that's not enough, because you just got massive water distribution. So everyone says, you got a big water volume, it's all stable, and it's easy to run a big tank, but it's not. It's got its own different problems. Until you run one, you don't know those things.
What do you do in terms of feeding then? You must put a lot in. So is this just fish food or coral food, or what do you do?
Well, I used to feed 6 times a day. I used to, and now I feed once or twice when I'm at home, maybe 3 times. I use some coral food. but I know that if I do too much, I'll get cyano. So I don't do too much. The other thing I'll get is aptasia, and all the vermitids, and they all feed on the fine particles. So balance those things, and if you've got an aptasia problem, coral foods are a good food source for aptasia, and they'll probably take them up in preference to the corals. So I balance them all up. But now everything's stabilized, tank's growing, nutrients are reasonable. I just feed a flake food once a day, and then frozen, a big dollop of frozen in the evening. I just actually fed just before we came on. So I tend to do it at this sort of time, and then it means then I'm a bit more hands off, and I don't have to worry about feeding all the time, which I did before. You're feeding 6 times a day.
Yeah,
didn't know how you do it.
Yeah. So you chuck in a lot at one point. How much you like? Is this like a brick of frozen food or something? How much you put in?
Yeah. So basically, when I go away, I bought some of the silicone ice cubes, so I make cubes of food. I do it out of normal food. But I mix up everything, bit of powder, bit of mysis, brine shrimp, whatever, and mix it all up, and then I know what's going in the tank. But when I'm here, I just break a chunk off. So it's either RS mysis, TMC food now, even sometimes. Just getting hold of the food. Reef feast I use a lot of. I used to. So when I get hold of it, do you know Reef feast? It's like it's just a mix. You get it in slices, and it's a mix of stuff with algae, red and green algae as well, and it's got a bit for everyone, and that's good stuff. Bit more expensive than your TMC stuff, but otherwise it's just whatever frozen. I don't make my own, but
I've just got Reef feast up. It's the big slabs, basically, right?
Yeah, but it's good stuff. It's a mix of everything. So it's made by Nick makes it at BC UK, and they do some frozen. They do frozen cubes and stuff, but this is their sort of premium frozen food product. Not everyone stocks it, but it's really good stuff. Yeah, it comes in in sheets like that. I just sort of break a bit off and feed that, or otherwise I mix my own TMC stuff. But you sometimes get the idea that TMC stuff's got a bit of filler in it as well. So I don't know how much of it is nutritious and how much isn't. So
I tend to feed. I think it's the gamma, which is the TMC stuff. That's what I feed to my tank because it's easy to get hold of.
Exactly.
Ryan talks about. Hang on a second, I'm just going to jump Imran back on. Ryan talks about Prestige Reef. Talks about when he's got copper bands, if he switches from Ocean Nutrition to the TMC gamma stuff, they start losing weight quite quickly.
Ocean Nutrition is good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah. I can't get hold of it though. That's the thing. There's one shop I know that has it, and a lot of the time
AEC do it, don't they?
That's miles away from me though. That's the thing.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same for us. So Southwest Marine shut down recently, so we kind of struggle now for food. We're always asking each other, "Where do you get your food from?" So we go and buy 20 sheets at a time. So yeah.
Imran, how you doing? Are you back in the land of the living?
Yeah, I'm still. My audio's still behind. So you're talking about food. I'm using RS mysis, which I managed to get from Sue at Aquatic Emporium.
Yeah, okay.
It's really clean stuff. It doesn't have a lot of crap in it. So even when you dissolve it in the water, it comes out really clean.
Yeah, I mean, you notice that's noticeable. So I currently got that stuff as well. So I mean, it's a bit more expensive, but I think if you can get your hands on that RS mysis for a mysis product, that's really, really good.
So I've tried RS mysis before, but what I find is because it's quite big chunks of shrimp. So a lot of my fish, like some of the bigger fish, no problem, but some of the smaller ones can't.
It is chunky.
The
little fish do struggle.
But obviously, mix it up though. I just feed some RS mysis now, but I've put some brine shrimp in there. So I always get a bit of different stuff for all of them, and a bit of yeast for the anthias.
Oh, really?
Have you tried yeast? Yeah.
No.
So get some yeast. The yeast powder. They're like little tiny beads, and they float in the water. Yeah. But if you've got anthias in your tank or really small fish, just watch them go crazy over that stuff.
You just put yeast
I
powder.
never tried that.
Yeast, to get out of a little tin.
I remember most fish going crazy for that.
Hang on a sec. Let me just go get it.
Go on, Imran. you were talking about. Do you feed your Antheas yeast? As well?
No, I don't. But
I haven't told him that
Mo
trick yet.
told me about it, and
Oh, I did. Yeah, so this is the stuff I've got.
Yeah, okay.
I think you probably get it off Amazon or something. And it's just little. I don't know if you'll see it. They're just little tiny pearls, really. I mean, you know, yeast. It's just yeast.
Yeah.
So, and they're just like little tiny, little tiny beads.
This is just from a supermarket, basically.
Yeah, you can get. I mean, you can buy it from anywhere. It's just the normal stuff. Buy it from a supermarket. It's a couple of quid, I think.
Yeah.
Let me just. I don't know if I can see if I get you in range. Just see if I can chuck a bit in the tank. So where you are.
Go for it. I've never come across feeding yeast to Antheas. That's crazy.
Yeah, to be honest, the first time I heard of it when Mo told me.
Yeah.
But you'll see his fish go mad for it.
Yeah. Okay. Imran, you tell us about testing and ICP testing, all that sort of stuff. You do that quite a lot, I think. Do.
Yeah, ICP. So I send off a sample every 4 weeks, but sometimes it's 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I put in my results into the Moonshiners spreadsheet and just dose what is low and try and get it as close to his levels as possible. I find it's a bit of a struggle actually to get everything exactly as Andre at Moonshiners recommends. Because you increase one thing, it drops another, and you increase the other, and it drops. There's a balance between them all.
Yeah.
So you can't just whack in everything and expect it to all. There's a relationship between all the elements, especially the trace elements.
So is it literally you adjust every time you do an ICP test, or do you do? Have you got them on daily dosing? What do you do? Are you dropping in bits every day?
Yeah, so mainly I'm checking for a trend when I'm doing the ICPs. So the ICP will tell me if I'm low on, say, fluoride, for example. So I'm increasing my fluoride dose, and then the next ICP, I'm looking for that fluoride to be a bit higher than it was previously. But I'm not saying the fluoride is 1. I want it to be 1.5. I'm going to whacking 500 mils to make it 1.5. I'm just increasing my daily dose slightly. And then in the next ICP, I want to see it at 1.2 maybe. So I want it to get closer to that 1.5 ideal. It doesn't always work. I mean, it might be that the iron is low the following ICP, and then your fluoride's fine, your iron is low. So it's like there's a slight adjustment on every ICP every 4 weeks.
What we've worked, I mean, we do the same thing, but I think Imran decided he was going to do Reef Moonshiners, and then a few weeks later, I decided I was going to do it as well. So, but basically, you know the story about manganese and the gonies and stuff, and so you kind of start with manganese if you nothing else, and you think, dose that, and then what else can you dose? And there's a theory about fluoride and blue tips on your SPS, and there's a few other bits and bobs that you hear, so you think, well, we'll try it out. And basically the common things that you need lots of, and you might start low and it builds up, is iron, fluoride. They're the top two. Manganese you need a lot of, but you can get a stable dose of manganese. Your iron and your fluoride, you'd never catch up. It always wants to dip. So those are the two that you're dosing lots and lots and lots, and you just keep going up and up. And then a bit of strontium, but if you dose flatworm stop, for example, you get a lot of strontium in that. So, and if you've got a lot of frag plugs, they leach vanadium, so your vanadium levels will be high. If you've got ceramics, your vanadium will be high. So there's a few bits that certain tanks, and then if you do kalkwasser, there'll be a bit of aluminium in there, a few other bits and bobs as well. Barium, you get that. So some of your levels will stay stable because of that. Molybdenum, everyone talks about that, but that's used very slowly. So once you get your molybdenum levels up, I don't know what it's needed for, but once you get it up, it stays there. And then basically your trace metals, but your trace metals like your zinc, your nickel, You use they're very, very trace amounts. You kind of dosing, a drop. And in mine, I used to dose about 0.5 ml or something a day, less than that. But the levels just stabilize, and then you tend not to need it. And the ones you then end up dosing are manganese, iodine is essential, iron, fluoride. And so I don't know if Imran has, but mine now, I put them on my pump. So I'm dosing 45 mils of fluoride a day, which is a lot. About 25 mils of iron, 25 of manganese. What else is there? Strontium, 10 mils a day.
Potassium.
I think so the one you get advised by moonshiners is to use the Seachem iodide. Most iodides are potassium iodide, and so there are a few salts, potassium salts, that are used so your potassium levels generally are okay. So initially, when I started, I had to dose a lot of potassium, but it's always been fine, and it obviously tell you on the ICP. So I don't know if Imran, do you dose a lot of potassium? Probably not.
Yeah, so I'm dosing currently iron, which I've got on a doser actually. I just recently put that on. Iron's really important. So fluoride, iodine, well, I've got a juggler here. So I've got, what else have I got? Manganese and strontium. Mo told me to dose strontium actually, and that made a big difference to my STS. I just saw the tips like just shooting out a bit more when the strontium was up. So those 5 are essential for me.
And Isan from Triton says there is no known role for fluoride, so he's not really a big proponent of fluoride. Never has been, and I think that's probably still the case. But we were always told, watch out for the blue tips. And I've got a stag, the Brolosensis, that is a brown bushy stag with blue tips and an orange sort of base, and the blue tips on it. I mean, my fluoride now is just over 1. And really, they tell you to keep at 1.5, which is a lot. So I was at 1.5. We used to have blue tips on this Abrolosensis, and then I let it drop. And I hadn't done an ICP for a few months, and then I did one, and my fluoride's dropped to just over 1, which is probably about the lowest it's been. But there are no blue tips on that SAG, and then so I whacked the dose up on the doser, and the blue tips are coming back. And so anecdotal evidence that maybe fluoride helps with blue tips. So where'd you get that from?
What does it say?
So I don't know for sure. pH is king. So I don't know, if it does or not.
My son bought me this hat after Alex came over and did the tank tour.
Right, because you used, that was one of the things, one of the main things that you talked about, and that is in the title for this video, is the Chris Meckley method stuff, because you were running Chris Meckley, or kind of a Chris Meckley method. So tell us about that, how you do it. Because you said pH made a big difference, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so when I was setting up this tank, just looking at YouTube, saw Chris Meckley come across using Kalkwasser. And I thought, Kalkwasser is an old method. And it was making a comeback at the time. And I thought, okay, this sounds interesting. And it was focusing on pH, keeping your pH up. So, and I saw a lot of nice tanks using Kalkwasser. And in the US especially, the Kalkwasser is really still quite popular. So this method, so what it does, you get a pH probe connected to your apex, and you monitor your 24-hour pH, and you basically dose Kalkwasser according to your pH. So you find out your average pH in 24 hours, and you set that in the apex to switch off your dosing when it goes above this average. So anything below that average, it will be dosing Kalkwasser. I've got this reverb. That's it.
So how stable does that make it? Is it like literally at 8.4 the whole time, or does it go up and down still?
Yeah. So my pH is Yeah, so it's wherever you want to keep it. Eventually, you can just flatline your pH. So I've got it set to 8.4 to 8.6. So when the lights are on and you get the photosynthesis bringing up the pH, it'll be up to 8.6, and then in the night when it goes down, it's 8.4, and that's where my calculator starts to dose.
Yeah.
When I first set up the tank, I started Chris Meckley right from day one. And I spoke to Chris Meckley about it actually, and he'd recommended not using his method on a brand new tank, because you don't have many corals and you will end up overdosing calcium, so your calcium shoots through the roof. But it didn't really cause any detrimental. I had calcium of about 530, but it wasn't a problem. Once your corals start growing, they use that calcium, and then it drops down.
So, because go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, generally speaking, calcwasser tanks have a low calcium and a higher alk. So if you initially do the Meckley method, your calcium will go up, but it'll rapidly drop. And then the question then is, what do you do when you've reached saturation or evaporation point, so that you can't dose any more calc? So Imran will tell you about that, but that's the next point about calcwasser. There's a limit. There's a limit to what you can dose. So anyway,
yeah. So I get, because you've got a few options. So I dose calcwasser, and I find I always have low calcium. I have to dose calcium separately, and magnesium, of course, because there's no mag in calcwasser. But I guess you've got options with when you reach your limitation point on evaporation for calcwasser. You can either try to increase your evaporation, which might get a small gain out of it, or you can go.
I do that.
Oh, do you? What do you do?
I get a massive gain. Well, I've got two, I don't know if you can see them. I've got 2 air circulators over my tank.
Yeah,
so I've got 3 in total. One in the sump room, just generally blowing air around, and I use a dehumidifier. Obviously, for tanking outside, you have to have something, right? So, and I evaporate about 25 liters a day if I don't run the evaporators, maybe 30 liters, and I don't. If I switch them on, I evaporate 55 liters.
Oh wow,
big difference. Yeah,
right, okay.
But I've got 2 big, they're 8-inch evaporators. They're just sort of fans. They don't really sort of rotate. You can manually move them up and down, but they're really fairly quiet fans, and they just blow across the front of the tank. So that's what I do, which I'm reaching that evaporation point as well. So I'm dosing 55 liters of calc a day, and I dose 1.5 liters of alk.
Right.
So I dose a fair bit.
What else can you, have you got plans to do other things? Because you could do slurry, or you could do other hydroxides.
I tried slurry. So before I bought the evaporators, I went on to slurry. So it's just basically, as the tank evolves, as corals start growing, gets more stable. So you need to do something. And I was doing a bolus method for a while.
Okay, yeah.
And that worked all right for me. And then, but it just starts to add up, doesn't it? I mean, it starts to get expensive. So I switched back to calc, and then the problem then was I was reaching evaporation, and so I started dosing slurry. The slurry blocks your pipes, and you have to be on top of it, because if you suddenly for a day you don't dose your slurry, that's a big problem. And you crash your pH. You can crash your pH, and then that can trigger off other things. But so that's the issue with slurries. One, the pipes, and I had a fair pipe run from my it's a 400 liter calcwasser tank, and I just dose out of there. And then I had a calcwasser reactor, and the problem there was when you dose so much, I just forget topping up, and the same issue. So it's a question of, do you dilute your calcwasser and have saturated calcwasser dosing into your tank, or do you have RO going through a calcwasser reactor?
Yeah.
And I've done a bit of both of those, and so I'm at the moment back on saturated calc out of a 400 litre. It lasts me about a week, just 8 days or so, and then I can just fill it up. And once you dilute it, and every week you're going to fill up your RO tank, that works all right. So that's what I currently do, and then I've got some doses on some bicarb.
Where do you get your calculus from?
APC.
Yeah,
and I didn't see. Yeah, but I spoke to them about that because I ordered. You know, I ordered the last. I think you ordered the one before me, but I ordered the last calculus tub, and I ordered it at 98%. I think they sent me 95%. So I rang them, or got shirty with them, and I don't know for sure, but what I was told is that actually the whole UK probably gets this calculus from the same source,
right.
And the source hasn't changed, but they've just labeled their product less pure. It doesn't mean it is actually less pure. And my ICPs haven't changed for the contaminants. So I've used it for at least, what is it? It must be 9 months now since the 95% label has come, and I've not noticed any difference. So I use the 95. I'm not bothered. It's 95% plus. I'll use it.
It's pretty good,
Yeah, I don't know if others have just stopped and went to something else, or whether they just thought, I'll just give it a try. But
I've stuck with it. So I used up my last bucket of 98, then I'm down onto 95. Again, it's just I don't feel like 3% is a huge difference. I asked them about it at the time. I can't remember what they said, but they didn't really answer the question, I felt.
Well, I pushed, and then that's the answer I got. So it's fine. And there's always an issue, chemicals labeling, and what legislation says you have to label them, what practicality that there is. I always just get the same issue with dates, sell by dates on KZ blue bottles, because in the UK they always used to be over date when you used to get them, and the same thing. Don't ignore the sell by date on KZ blue bottles back in the day. So there is a bit of there's the reality of it and what legislation says you have to label. So I don't know why they did switch to 95%, but it seems to work all right.
Okay, basically, exactly the same. So what about? So we talked about feeding and feeding yeast to your anthers, all that sort of stuff. We've talked about ICP and trace. What else? So I don't think we finished talking about the Meckley stuff though, Imran. So tell us more about that. Is there anything else? You said don't do it from the start, but it's worked really well for you. You haven't had any RTN issues since you started that. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the method, you have to make sure that, with the Chris Meckley, strictly his method, he doesn't use slurry or anything else. He uses calcium hydroxide, and it's just saturated calc. So when you're dosing it, it's consistent. You know exactly what pH you're adding to the tank. And I think it's a bit more consistent than if you're doing saturated calc rather than a slurry. A slurry sometimes your slurry can be thicker than other times. You're not 100%. I don't know what you think, Mo. If your slurry can be.
No, you put a pump in it. So basically, don't think of a slurry as a sludge. You put a pump in it, get it circulating, and the powder you put in will just be more concentrated. The calc is still saturated, but you just got floating calc particles in the fluid. And if you keep it, if your pump dies, it will settle and you'll get saturated calc. But the slurry is actually just powder floating around in the water. So when it hits your tank water, it dissolves. It might precipitate a little bit, so you might get more precipitation with the slurry, but it's just stronger. So it has you more of a pH response, more of an alk response, slightly higher calcium, and that's all it does. The problem is wherever it hits air and water interface, it will precipitate, and it might precipitate in your lines. So your lines can block up any time. So you just got to keep on top of blowing your lines out, and then you won't get you won't get your lines blocked. And the same with your maintenance of your pump, your peri pump. So swings and roundabouts really. So if you're up on your maintenance and maintenance is an issue, then slurry will work. But you just have to keep up on your game with it. That's all.
I think I'm too lazy for that to work. I'd leave it. I'd forget it. And because if it drops off and it goes into saturated calc because your pump dies, your pH is going to drop, isn't it? And that's the sort of thing that I'd leave.
But if you're monitoring your pH, that's the thing that will tell you. Okay. Yeah, it's the same as when I run out of calc. If I forget my calc-Vassar reactor to top it up, the pH starts dropping before the out goes. and you can see the trend on your apex. So I mean that's the same.
that
I
happened to
didn't
me
use
2 days ago. I
yeah.
didn't top up my carb bin was empty.
Yeah. So with it, the way I do it, saturated, I know every weekend I've got to fill up my RO tank. I know how much calc I've got to put in there, and I've got a tub just the right size. It happens to be the Deltec, the one that came with the Deltec reactor. That is the perfect size for my RO tank. Fill the RO tank, dump that in, mix it with a PVC pipe, and that's it. I'm done. And mixing it takes 2 minutes, 30 seconds. So that works fine, and it's not, it's saturated calc, so it's not precipitating too much. So only every few weeks, once a month, you might want to just make sure the end's not blocked, and that's all really.
So what
that
dosing
works.
pump are you using to dose saturated calc?
So initially I was doing Kamoa, the Wi-Fi
STP,
one.
Yeah.
So basically,
a continuous duty one.
Yeah. And I was doing
this one, the big fat chunky one.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had that to start with, and now I just put it on a DOS. It's all about having the Wi-Fi access, so I can adjust it if I need to. So if you've got your Apex and you think, oh, I need to dose a bit more, you can dose a bit more. So I was doing that, and then now I just use the DOS, the quiet drive, and I can change the dose on my Apex. So it doesn't matter which one you use, really.
Yeah. Just I think the Camo one's a bit more basic, isn't it? And you've got a bit more control over the easy to use the Neptune one.
Yeah.
Okay. Imran, what do you use for dosing calc?
Tell us in 5 seconds.
I know.
I got the Apex DOS, so that it's got 2 heads on it. So the first head, I can hear you 5 seconds later as well. The first pump, actually, the Parry pump, the tubing split in it. So then I just started using the second pump. So I need to actually replace the tubing on the first one. But I've been using that for 3 years now.
Yeah,
and it's going quite well, strong. It's connected to the Apex, so it reads the pH and doses accordingly.
There's a question about sodium hydroxide. So there's a company in the States called Not a Fish that have started using. They've created a 2-part dosing system that uses sodium hydroxide. We've had that in the UK for a couple of years now with Reef's Elements ZPH Plus, so we've had that for a while, and lots of people use it. I tried it, but I didn't get on with it. Have you guys ever tried that?
No, I mean sodium hydroxide is quite potent. So I think Meckley upgraded his method a little bit because didn't he hit saturation evaporation point as well?
I feel like Meckley uses potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, obviously calcium. I think he uses a few. Last time I saw him talk about it, he wouldn't talk about some of the hydroxides he used because they're so dangerous.
And I think that's because he was upgrading his method. Yeah, he was upgrading it. So he hit evaporation. Yeah, and he didn't want because it's sodium hydroxide.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what strength they use.
It's quite dangerous.
They'll melt your finger. So
yeah.
If you've got potent, so I mean, you get a bit of that in your eye. Even I can't fix it. So so for me to I don't want to splash the sodium hydroxide in my eye. I might just about get away with calcium hydroxide in my eye, but sodium hydroxide. So you just got to be extra careful if you're messing with them. I'm not saying don't mess with them, but they're very potent at raising the pH. But for me, calc works fine. Sodium hydroxide might be neater because it's you got a solution and you can just drip, and it's very potent, so you can drip it in. But no, I don't use it.
The 2 problems I found with the ZPH Plus with sodium hydroxide was one.
But you get the calcium part and the calcwaster, don't you? So it keeps your calcium and alk in balance.
That's true. The ZPH Plus stuff, if you dose it just into your sump, it solidifies instantly and just sits on the bottom of your sump. So you have to put a pump in to blast it. Otherwise, it just precipitates.
It precipitates, yeah.
And the other thing I found, it clogged my dosing lines really quickly. I think it was apparently the Red Sea dosing lines. You're not supposed to use it with them because it burns through them. And that was my experience. So we got to the point where the doses weren't dosing. I couldn't work out why, and then there was a split somewhere because of that stuff. So I just stopped using it. It was too much hassle for me, and my pH was going really high. And I've never kind of, I don't know if you've got an idea on the limit of pH. No, I can never get anyone to pin down and say you mustn't go above X pH.
Yeah, we were having a. Do you ever watch Adam's Frag Garage?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I'd say
I don't know
about 10.
So
but Chummingham's Reef got it up to what, 8 point?
Yeah, so Chummingham's Reef. So Ryan Cunningham. But did you see his episode? So he'll have it on his archives. But he's got an 8x4, or he did have an 8x4 tank with chock full of
trough,
SPS,
wasn't it?
The
It
best.
was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then he just had massive fans over his tank, was just evaporating, just running Kalkwasser. He ran nothing else but Kalkwasser. And then he was running up to 8.7. There was an episode where he said 8.7, 8.8, and at some point he went to 8.9. Now, you might argue that actually you need to calibrate your probe because it probably is 8.9.
He talked about that. He said people that challenged him on the probe, he was like, mate, I've calibrated, I've changed different probes.
Really, new probe. Yeah, I must have missed that bit, so I'll have to go watch it again. But Adam needs to do some more episodes. I don't know what's happened to that, because that was a fantastic series.
I think he moved house at one point, so he shut it down and was.
I know Ryan has.
Right,
Ryan has, but Ryan's a anaesthetist, so I'm guessing he got a consultant post somewhere, and then he'll come back, and then that'll be his permanent fix, and then he'll have a fantastic system because he's good at what he does. But Adam is equally good, but he's good at podcasts as well, and if you just look back on every single episode is amazing. So he needs to get back on the scene and start doing some more. But I've had mine 8.8. Got a bit nervous 8.8, but I did recalibrate. Well, I put a new probe on and it was about 8.4, 8.5. So I don't know if it actually got that high. But
I wonder if actually, because even if you're calibrating it, I wonder if how accurate the probes are at that height, because then it's not supposed to be reading that high, is it? It's not what's designed for.
Well, also, I mean, the probes that we should be using are too expensive for us to be using. So for a hobbyist setup, so you're never going to be 100% accurate with that sort of thing. But it's more about the stability of the pH level that you've got, and I imagine the tank's not going to let you, unless you massively overdose. It's going to just adjust itself, because if you've got a reasonable alk level, it buffers your pH. So the higher your alk is going to stop your pH from going up and up and up and up. So there must be a limit, unless you sort of crash the buffer system. The higher you go with your pH, there'll be some resistance to drop it back down, and that depends on the balance point of your buffers. So there will be some resistance to going over the top, unless you chuck a bucket of calc in your tank or something. But there is a little bit of stability from that point of view. So 8.8 I've done. The only thing I find that the higher pH you go, I don't know if Imran will see the same, but higher pH you go, your corals tend to be a bit more, they grow fast, but they're not as strong, the skeleton. So some of the tips you can accidentally frag just by blowing on them. I mean, they really are fragile. So they calcify quickly, but they're not, I suppose the density of the calcium or their skeleton is much less when you're at higher pHs. There's a chemical reason for it as well, but that happens. So yes, it's good for growth, but it's also they're not as strong.
Basically.
I mean, I don't think you'll kill the tank, but
to be fair, if you're getting your pH around the 8.3, 8.4 mark, that's very good for your corals anyway. So you don't need to be worrying about getting it higher than that.
You want to get around 8.4, and that's good. And then you get solid corals, strong skeletons. You want to be. When you get your frag scissors and you find it difficult to cut, that's where you want to be with the corals, really. So going too crazy is not necessary.
Okay, so there was one of the things that I wanted to talk to Imran about. He's just dropped off again. He'll be back in a second, I suspect. But he sent off an Oceamo Organo MS test.
Oh, is he? We both bought one at Acro. No, I've got one. I haven't sent mine off yet. Right. So I don't know. I didn't know he sent his off, but we both bought it at Acro. So it would be interesting to see what he's come back with.
Yeah, so I sent mine off a few weeks ago, and it came. Basically, it didn't tell me anything. Fortunately, it didn't tell me there was anything nasty in there. But the thing
Right.
that it did say, it talked a lot about was amino acids, and gave me
Right.
various amino acids that I was low on. Some were fine, some weren't. So obviously I'm getting aminos from somewhere, so it must be the food or whatever else I'm putting in there. But because I don't dose aminos, so there were a lot of them were low, and that was the main thing it told me.
Yeah, but there'll be a natural level of amino acids, and they're breakdown products of protein. So I mean, if you get hydrolysis of proteins, you get amino acids. So, and it works the other way. So your protein synthesis is based on amino acids. So that's why if you're dosing aminos, that's why you're doing it. So you will have an inherent level of amino acids, and you might be low on some, and some may be key and critical. I don't know which ones they are, and I don't know if they tell you which ones they are. They might do, but
the Organo MS test lists out all different types of, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't think, as far as I'm aware, none of the companies tell you what's in their amino bottles. So
yeah, and to get an individual amino acid would be difficult, I would have thought, unless if Oceamo know the ones that are and they'll develop this. If the more people do the test, you'll realize that there's certain amino acids that seem to be depleted, and if they look at thriving SPS tanks, for example, and they find actually these thriving SPS tanks or mature ones are high in X amino acid, then that gives you a clue as to those amino acids seem to be particularly important. And these people, I've got patients on the mind, but these people who are having difficulty, they're lacking these certain things, and they'll pick up a trend. And Claude Fornamarin is brilliant at doing that. And although he gets slated a lot in the American forums, he's got a lot of knowledge that people don't give him credit for.
Why does he get slated? I've not seen that.
Oh, the bolus method and a few other bits and bobs, and I fell out with Randy Holmes-Farley, and then it just all escalated from there. But people like Claude are way ahead of their time, and people just need to catch up, and they will at some point. But he's the level of knowledge he has, just based on observations from successful versus struggling reef tanks, and what the levels are, what the nutrients are. He's got a lot of knowledge, but he hasn't released that knowledge a little bit. And I'm sure there are other people, and it's a bit like Thomas Pohl with the KZ bottles. You imagine, talking 15, 20 years ago, and he had these potions which nobody knew. They worked. We know what's in there now, but he was the only one who knew at the time. So I think there's a lot of knowledge that people haven't shared that would be really, really useful. And this will be
the way to share it is to have success. So the KZ stuff, the KZ tanks were amazing, but they don't seem that popular anymore. But so if you can show, look, you put all this stuff in and you get these results, people will believe you.
Well, I mean, there was a KZ forum, wasn't there? So I mean, I ran KZ back in the day. It was very tricky to make it successful, but you knew, they would tell you certain things. So and you could talk to Thomas Pohl in those days. You can email him and he'll reply, and he wouldn't tell you what's in them. A bit like Modern Reef, he's fantastic. You could talk to him about all his chemistry, and he won't tell you what's in his stuff. You might ask him to, is there a bit of nickel in this, or is there this or that, and he won't tell you politely. But Modern Reef's another example of fantastic stuff, which works a treat. But we knew that copper was in Zeospur, and be careful because there's a load of copper in there and a load of heavy metals. And if you want to bleach your corals and get the KZ look, use Zeospur. But if your corals are a bit unhealthy, you'll kill them. And so there was a lot of knowledge back then that people. I'm sure people have measured it now and worked out what was in the KZ bowls. But
maybe. Imran, have you sent off your Oceamo or Organo MS test yet? Give him a
I have sent it off. Yeah, I got that result back a few weeks ago. Okay. I was surprisingly, I was really low on a lot of the amino acids. Everything else was fine. There wasn't any medicine, or actually, there was some fluconazole in the water, which I used to kill off bryopsis about a year ago.
How long before?
That's still in the tank. That's crazy.
From a year ago?
Yeah, it's still in the tank.
It'll be in your rocks.
But it was small amounts.
Have you got bryopsis back?
Sorry, I'm so behind on the audio. But yeah, it's no, bryopsis doesn't come back.
So that might be why, because you get leaching it from the rocks or somewhere. Or you haven't got
so yeah, the amino acids that were low, he's recommended to dose them. Basically, he said there's a product, I forgot what it's called now, but it's all a mixture of their amino acids.
So and that's because we were just talking about that. We were saying that if you buy aminos from Brightwell or whoever, Reeves Elements, they don't say what's in them. So I guess that's the same with Oceamo, but maybe because they've got these test results coming in, they can start targeting stuff.
Yeah, you're not 100% sure what's in them.
Do you know how they set their level? Like, how do you know what's low and what's high for amino acids when nobody's?
They tell you the individual amino acids.
Yeah,
so,
how do you know? How do you set it?
I think it was like lysine. Can't remember them all off the top of my head, but
you'll answer my question in a minute.
in terms of aminos and stuff, I don't. Do you actually dose aminos, Mo, or do you just is that just
No.
from your food?
Do I dose? I dose. I don't know if Lick Red. You know the Nios Lick Red?
Yeah, Nios Lick Red. Yeah.
So I dose that. I don't know if it's got aminos in it. They've got an amino version. So I've got the bottle of amino, the yellow stuff. It's like fluorescent yellow, but I don't really dose it much. I dose Lick Red every couple of days, probably, or once in a while. So if I get carried away with Lick Red.
Mo, I was reading something recently about amino acids helping to buffer your pH, similar to the bicarb buffering system. Whereas amino acids actually help to buffer it as well.
Yeah, but I think the buffering system from amino acids is very weak compared to bicarb. So, I mean, we talk about buffers in seawater, but you get the same buffers in blood. And so the bicarbonate system is in the bloodstream as well. So you get taught about all the buffers. So the main buffers are still bicarb and amino acids. You can get some buffering, but I don't think it's a major role. I might stand to be corrected. Somebody might find a major role for it, but I don't think you want to be dosing amino acids to buffer your pH.
Yeah, and also
your alk. She's listening to what I just said.
Yeah, sorry. I'm actually really far behind. But the buffering capacity of amino acids is a lot weaker than the bicarb system, but apparently it plays a role. And I was thinking, when you're dosing your kalkwasser, and say if the bin goes empty, you notice a sharp drop in your pH. But once I started dosing 2-part, the sodium bicarb, that drop wasn't so sharp when my pH, my kalkwasser would run out. So obviously there's that better buffering capacity from the sodium bicarb.
But that's the same it's the same buffering that you get from calc. It's the same system. It just feeds into it at a different point, at a different equilibrium point. So the reaction is where you get CO2 and it goes to bicarbonate and carbonate. So it's the relative level. So if you carbonate raises your pH, but it's at a different point in the buffering system. But it's the same buffering system for buffering seawater, and the more carbonate you have, the higher your pH, and also the higher your pH, the more carbonate level you're going to have. So your bicarb, if you dose it, some of it will convert to carbonate as well, and that's why they produce the carbonate system. So they dose carbonate directly because it's just going in at a later stage in the buffering system, so it has a more potent effect on pH. But it's just choose your weapon really. But your calcium hydroxide is also affecting the hydroxide binds with the CO2 and makes bicarb and carbonate, and you're dosing bicarb, so you're topping up the bicarb to then convert to carbonate. So you're doing the same thing by dosing alk or dosing calcium hydroxide.
Is it fair to assume you guys have both got a background in chemistry? Or biology?
He's a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
You're a doctor, right? Here we go.
I'm an eye surgeon.
Right, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
So,
you know
and
your
he's a
stuff.
pharmacist.
Yeah,
A little bit.
Yeah. Liquid does.
Yeah, his knowledge is a bit above mine.
Okay.
So Liquid does what? Sorry,
It does have aminos. It says rich in amino
Oh,
acids,
okay.
3, 6 to 9 fatty acids, and
Yeah.
astaxanthin.
Yeah. So yeah. There you go. So that's what I dose. So I do dose them, but that might be why I get a bit of cyano if I get carried away. But it's really good. You get a phenomenal response in the corals. I don't think
Okay.
it's essential though, personally, but I think I do see a reaction.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to talk about. So Imran, when I did your tank tour, when we did the tank tour, you had the nitrate reactor, and you wanted to talk more about that. So tell us more about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I with the nitrate reactor, so my nitrates was, like Mo said, his was 200, 100 for ages. Over a year, I had nitrates really high. And we just trying to trace those lower numbers, get into like 10 to 20 to see if the SPS, just you get those colors out of the SPS. But to be honest, like I've had nitrates of 5 and I've had them over 100. I can't say that it's better at 5 or the colors are better at 5. But anyway, the nitrate reactor, I put that on to get the nitrates down and get them under control. So essentially it's just a reactor which feeds the bacteria, anaerobic bacteria, gives it a surface to grow on, and convert that nitrate to nitrogen. Mo's running one as well.
Okay.
Yeah, well, my it's funny that our nutrient levels mimicked each other all the way through. So when Imran's tank was running, I mean, I must have been about 125 nitrates, and he was on about 60 or 70 or 100 or something. And then I just sort of left it there, and I ran. That's when I was running really. The lights were 85%. Really high power. It was fine. Tank was clean. There was no nuisance algae, no cyano, and corals were growing really nicely. So you might argue if you didn't know the numbers, you just leave it because it looked really good. And then, but they know you don't. Nitrate of 200, you're embarrassed to go out. So Imran had this idea about having a sulfur reactor. And then I started looking at it as well. Then when he said, "Oh, look, I've done this," and suddenly my nitrates are 5, I just thought, maybe I'll look at that, because I can't have you having a nitrate of 5 and me having a nitrate of 100.
Yeah. Okay.
So I did the same. So I bought some sulfur beads, and I had an old reactor. I don't know if you remember, Alex, Chippy Parr back in the day used to make reactors and sell them on eBay.
No.
It was on Ultima Reef, and he made me a biopellet reactor. So right when biopellets first started, the guy in Netherlands sent me 20 liters of biopellets. Anyway, I got this specially made reactor, and I kept it, and then I just converted it now into a recirculating nitrate reactor. And then I just built up my sulfur beads the same way that Imran did, and it's such a it's absolutely brilliant. You don't do anything. You don't. There's no faff. You just put water through it.
Because it's just basically a reactor. It's a tube, isn't it, filled with bead, and you just feed it water, and then it spits out zero nitrate water the other end.
I see somebody was asking that is it hard to is it hard to control your nitrates? But actually it's really easy, because the reactor takes your nitrates right down to 0, and you can increase them by dosing nitrate. So you can keep it exactly where you want it with those two things side by side.
What nitrate do you dose? It was ammonia or something, wasn't it? What did you dose?
Yeah. He doses what I made him.
I actually dosed ammonium bicarb.
Ammonium bicarb.
Yeah, so
that's what Mo put me onto, actually. So
I was dosing when I set up the tank, I couldn't get nitrates in. So that's the problem with a big old tank. When you after it's cycled, you get a few fish in there, and you put the first lot of corals, and you just can't get nutrients into it. So I started on ammonium bicarb, and there was probably few people talking about it at the time. Paletta was talking about it as well, and I just started it, and basically it's just higher up the food chain than the nitrates. And nitrates your end product, and bicarb's good for corals. So so the late Jake Adams used to talk about corals taking up ammonium, and he did a talk in Bristol once, a long time ago, when I first set up my first tank, and he used to talk about it all those days. So I just thought, oh, okay, you know, I might try the ammonium, and then Mike Paletta was talking about it, a few others were talking about it. We worked out a dose, and then I started dosing it, and it seemed to work pretty well for nitrates. Then I had a mini tank crash from a sea hare, and I lost a lot of corals, and then that's when I got my cycle, and my nitrates shot up. So I obviously stopped it then. And then when you got the nitrates down, you can work out a dose of ammonium. It's good for your corals, and your nitrate reactor will take the rest out. And you can sort of titrate it, that stuff. And
that's exactly what I've got.
Yeah, and you can titrate it to whatever nitrate level you want. But the only thing is, if you overdo your sulfur beads, you have to take a bit out. But so if you're hitting zero constantly, you don't want to hit zero, to be honest. But if you're getting close to it, you can take a bit of the beads out, and it will slow down your nutrient drop. The thing to do is not to be too OCD about the nitrate reactor. You've got to give it a chance to work, and you've got to be hands off about it. If you tinker too much, you'll get problems, and that's why there are lots of people who say, oh, they don't work and there are problems with it. But you actually just got to be hands off and leave it alone, and just don't touch it, don't even look at it, and just monitor your nitrate levels.
Mo likes tinkering with his equipment.
Yeah. But you can monitor the nitrate level in your tank, or nitrate level that comes out of the reactor. As soon as that hits zero out of the reactor, then monitor your nitrate level in your tank. And if it's going too low, so I suggest get it to about 10. And if it's hitting 10 and wanting to go lower, take some beads out.
So if it's getting, sorry, that's 10 coming out of the nitrate reactor, or is that 10?
I mean, if you're above, this is assuming you're above. No, you'll get zero out of the reactor. It'll eventually hit zero, and then it'll slowly start taking your tank nitrate level down. And then what you want to do is keep it where you want it, be it 5, be it 10. For me, 5's too low. It's too close to zero, so I run it at about 10. And I run it at 10, and I dose a load of ammonium, and I've got a balance. But I went too low, and I took a load out, and now I get about 10, and I can dose ammonium.
Yeah, so it comes out of the reactor at zero when you start, because you're dripping it at 1 drip per second, and so you get that bacteria building up in the reactor. You got to have good flow through the reactor, but not out of the reactor. So you're getting 1 drip a second, and then that effluent, you test it, and when the nitrate is zero, you then increase the drip rate to 2 drips per second. You test it again, maybe a week later, and you keep increasing the drip rate. I've got it on that doser, Kamoa doser. It's doing about 90 mils per minute, and that's the maximum that it can go at. But
and 90 mils a minute, that's the amount of tank water that you're feeding into it, right?
That's the amount you're feeding into it, yeah. And
you feed tank water into it, and it drips it back into the tank. So it's just cleaning the water and putting it back in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. Good way of.
It just takes a while for the bacteria, the bacterial mold to grow, right. And that's the key. So you just got to put it to the side, let it run. You work out. There are some videos online, and you work out what sort of volume of sulfur beads you need, and then you've just got to sort of use that and leave it alone. The problem is people fail because they tinker with it, and they think, oh, that's not working. So just make sure you've got the flow that is required, and leave it alone. And your nitrates will eventually, after a few weeks, start dropping. Maybe a month, 6 weeks, it'll start dropping. And then the key is then at that point is to adjust it. And then once you get the right volume, like Imran's done and I subsequently did, you get the right volume, and then you might dose some ammonium to keep it up, or nitrate just to keep it up. And it's nice to do it that way. You can actually have a certain level of sulfur beads in your reactor and just feed your normal food. As long as you're feeding that food, it will process the excess. So it's kind of competing with your corals or your other biology, but it's taking up what's left and getting rid of that. And then you've got to then say, well, I don't want to hit zero, and eventually you will. So you've either got to balance it with the volume of beads, or you've got to dose some extra in. So we do it by dosing extra, because you can control what you dose. and then you eventually hit a balance, and then just leave it alone. Don't even look at it. Just make sure the flow's going through it. But that's it. And,
So someone's
Imran's had
commented
it for
about
how long?
Sorry, how long have you had it running, Imran?
Must be a year now.
Sorry, yeah, I've had it running for a year, maybe just a bit longer than a year.
Yeah, and mine's just under 9 months. This 9 months or so.
Someone's commented asking about why you wouldn't just use vodka dosing, so carbon dosing instead.
Yeah,
Why wouldn't you just do that?
You can.
Yeah, just do that instead. But it's just an
Yeah, I mean, it's just
alternative
it's a carbon source. You can do biopellets if you want. It's just a different way of doing it. But you can overdose your vodka, and vodka's quite strong compared to vinegar.
Yeah, I find that obviously with the sulfur beads, you've got your reactor full of the beads, and that's a constant food source for the bacteria, and that's going to last probably 3 years before you have to replace the beads. Whereas with vodka, it's not the cheapest thing. You're dosing that every day, or vinegar, or whatever it may be. And I tried no parks. I tried vodka, not vodka. I tried carbon dosing, but it didn't really seem to work for me.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I mean,
exactly
you can. I mean, KZ was based on that sort of thing, wasn't it? It was the KZ stones, and then a load of and a mix, and then Red Sea brought out their mix of stuff as well, and it works. It's not that it doesn't work, and biopellets work. It's just the ease of the maintenance. The ease. There's no maintenance for the reactors that I found. It's tinkering around too much that creates a problem. But once it's set, it's set and forget. But you just got to leave it. It's like you've got a Rowaphos in a reactor. Well, you've got sulfur beads in reactors, so what? And you have to change your Rowaphos out once a month. You don't even have to do that with this sulfur reactor. You just got to learn to leave it alone and let it do its thing. And mine is now, the more I've left it alone, the more stable my nitrates have become. And now I'm just tinkering with dosing and seeing what happens to my nitrate levels. If I dose a bit more ammonium, what happens a couple of days later? What if I drop it down? And I just got to be careful that I don't run out of ammonium, so that the pellets I have got will drop my tank down to zero.
Yeah.
But if I keep feeding at the rate I'm feeding, and if I just keep adding the volume of ammonium that I'm adding.
Another thing with the sulfur is that you've got to make sure you keep feeding it nitrate. So if you get to a point where your tank is zero, you're feeding it zero, you start crashing the bacterial culture. You might get sulfured out. So it's like an eggy smell coming out of the reactor.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a good idea to smell it every now and again, make sure it's fresh.
But just keep some nitrates in the tank. So run 5 or 10. 10 is for me. I don't know what, Imran. What do you run your nitrates at?
My nitrates currently 10 to 20. It's just between 10 and 20.
I run 10 to 15. I always aim for about 10, and I couldn't quite get the balance, but mine are on 10 now. My phosphates are about 0.1 to 0.15. I try and get them between 0.1 and 0.2. I don't like to go below. I get nervous when I go below.
That's quite high for Acros.
No, it's not. People, the magic number was 0, wasn't it, back in the day? And then it was 0.03. And no, if I go to 0.05 on this tank, I'll strip a few corals. So I get nervous if I'm getting to 0.08, I'll go to 0.08 just to see. I don't see a difference between 0.1 and 0.05 in colors or anything like that.
Doesn't cause you growth slowing down or whatever.
No, I don't see it, but others may. I mean, I don't know the difference between the bigger tanks and the smaller tanks. One thing I do know, it's easier to get nutrition into your corals when they're all packed together. So mine now is easier, but I've got 8 foot by 8 foot packed full of corals. And Imran's will be relatively easy because he's got lots of mouths all in 6 foot tanks. So we just chuck a load of food in and it'll distribute across all of them. So they'll all get fed. But if I had 10 corals in the tank that size, and I chuck a load of food in, I'll have a load of waste, and half the corals won't get fed properly. And so to feed, it's easier to feed when the tank's fuller and more mature. But then having that much food, if you've got any waste food, you've got to have the flow and you've got to have something to process the waste. And it's nice to have a nitrate reactor to process that waste.
Mm.
And I actually use lanthanum as well because that's relatively easy. So those are the two things I'm looking at. And as long as I can control those with whatever means, I can chuck a load of food in. It doesn't matter if I feed extra. So at the weekends when I'm here and I'm feeding extra, it still
Yeah,
gets
that's
processed.
another thing I've started using is lanthanum as well. Got the same stuff that Mo uses, so lanthanum dosing to keep my phosphate under control.
And that's literally, it's basically you drip it in on a doser, and then you adjust the dose based on what your levels are, right? Simple as that.
Yeah. So back in the day when I was probably a year before I shut down, maybe a couple of years, my phosphate started going up, and I used to have problems with GFO, so I used to use lots of row, and I couldn't get my phosphate below 0.03. And in those days, trying to hit 0, and it was another ego thing to get. I've got 0 phosphate, but I couldn't get below 0.03. But I got 0, and so in an attempt to actually get 0, I used to chuck through loads of row, and I used to just every time I put a new bucket of row phos on, I'd lose a coral, and I got fed up with it, and eventually I went to lanthanum. So I bought some pool lanthanum, but I had to do a lot of research because they put a lot of there are a lot of organic solutions mixed in with the lanthanum. So to get a pure lanthanum based pool phosphate remover is quite tricky, and I don't think they make it so much anymore. Anyway, when I found the stuff, I bought 5 litre tubs of it, and I use 100 ml at a time, and it'll give me 100 ml will give me a 5 litre bucket of my mix, and I use that mix, and I dose at between 0.1 and 0.3 mils on a Kamoa.
So
it's 10 mils
throughout the day.
Yeah, and I dose it into the weir box. But if you're doing 0.1 mils, a minute, which is the lowest speed that the Kamoa does, that's hardly anything. So you can do that and not worry about your tangs and not worry about the. When I first started, I used to dose it into the skimmer
to get it out.
Yeah. Well, I tried to dose it into the skimmer, and I found the first time I did it, I got a cloud of cloudy water in the tank, so that really put me off. So I don't dose it.
You dose it through the weir box. Have you got filter sumps in? Is that what
well, no, I've got a Royal exclusive sump, and I had a roller filter.
Yeah.
But I took that offline because it was stripping too much out of the tank.
Right.
So all I've got now is a fancy sump with a nice skimmer.
So where does the lanthanum go then? Weir box just straight into the sump.
Yeah, it goes the weir box into the sump. There's no, it's got an automated filter fleece roller on it, but I've just taken the fleece off. So it basically goes into that section, gets mixed up, goes downstream, and hits the skimmer. And the downstream, the way the Royal exclusive sump's designed, it's got a big sort of square boxy area, and all of the flow goes through this area, and it exits right in front of the pump of the skimmer, so that it kind of skims it all out.
Probably won't go much past.
It's a 10-foot sump. Yeah, so there's a long way for it to get. Yeah, it's a long way for it to get back into the tank, and I've got a hefty skimmer with the biz pumps on it, so it skims. The skimmer skims, and that's all I've got now. I've got the corals, the tank, Cyperax, and the skimmer. And
do you get lanthanum showing on your ICP tests?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to cause any problems, though, fish or corals?
No. I look at what is Melev's Reef. He's got that phosphate. It's not one of the lanthanum type, and he just drips it into. It's almost like he's feeding his tanks.
He'll do it as well. So he'll build up. So if his phosphate creeps up to 0.5, he'll just pour a load in and then come back a week later and do it again. And
but he does it by drop
for a while. Never has any issues.
Yeah, and he's got a few videos that show you, look, it's fine. And he goes into his tank and he'll do 70 drops today, and he counts some 70 drops, and it's into the tank. Whereas I don't. I do it into the weir box. So I've got a Kamoa diluted lanthanum into the weir box, and it circulates through past my skimmer and back into the tank. And I think by the time it's gotten there, it's probably nothing. There's nothing in there. But I've done it for 18 months, probably 15 months, and I can monitor my phosphate and say, all right, I want it at 0.1. If I want 0.05, I can do it. I just don't venture that far. But it's just a question of dosing it and upping the rate a little bit. So if it started to go, if I fed too much, or I've done too much powder food, Benefits, whatever, I can just up the dose. So I go between 0.1 and 0.3, and I can do it from my phone. And I've got the Apex, and it seems to do a reasonable job. And every so often I'll check it with the Hannah eggs to make sure that my phosphate's reasonable. But 0.1's a safe zone. 0.08 is a safe zone, so that's where I tend to run it.
Okay, so I think those are basically, we've covered everything that I had on my list of things to talk about. Was there anything that you guys, there's some member questions I want to go over whilst you guys are here with questions on flow and all that sort of stuff, but anything that you guys want to talk about that we haven't talked about so far?
Imran, go for it.
Yeah. No, so just there's a lot of things that we've tried when I say me and Mo, we're normally trying the same things. So over the years, to see if we get a little bit more color out of the SPS, a little bit more growth. But to be honest, I think the basics is just the flow, light, and stability. And I think pH stability, again, come back to pH. I think it's the number one thing that's been better than anything else to get stability in the SPS. So
yeah, I mean, that's Imran's done the Meckley method. Meckley's gone on about it for yonks, the tanks like Chummingham's Reef, and there are a lot of tanks that prove the method, and it works fine. It's cheap to run. There are a few frag farms as well in the US that just do calc, so it works all right. I mean, there is the precipitation theory, and that higher pH you're going to precipitate more, but it's just a question of can you adjust for it. It doesn't seem to affect the corals too much. You've got to keep on top of your husbandry. Don't overdo it. Keep your hands out of the tank. Everyone's whenever you ask people what do you do for SPS, it's not there's no magic potion. It's about doing the basics right, setting your basics, and nothing. SPS don't color up in a day. And you can see the same with the tenuis. You can see the same with all the other corals. You might get a coral that's green, and you look at it 6 months later, and it's a Walt Disney. So they'll come with time and stability. So yes, dosing reef moonshiners helps. Dosing the aminos helps, but actually, if you did none of that, you still have a nice tank, nice colors on your SPS, just by making sure that your rock stable salinity.
that's
really
the thing
good.
with SPS. They really do take time. Some of these tenuis, they take a long time to start getting good polyp extensions. Those colors don't come out overnight. You don't see the colors in a week or two. It's going to be months, and you got to be able to lift the coral up and put it down, adjust it according to the light and the flow as well. So don't just stick a coral down and think it's just going to be fine there. You've got to be able to move it around your tank, find the optimum spot for it, and then just leave it when it looks happy. Leave it for months before you actually see it really flourish.
And don't underestimate the flow. I bought a Biz Cannons. They'll probably be there, and I thought they'll whack around the tank. They'll circulate. I'll get a double gyre, and they'll circulate through the middle. And I set my scape up to do, to match. And yes, they're great because they keep but I turn them down, so I've got a constant. They're random, but I got that baseline flow. And it wasn't until I put, Ocean Sea Wave now. I've got some really good rotators, but these things revolutionized my tank. Literally within a few days of putting these in, they just rotate the pumps.
Yep.
And I've got 6 of them. I've got 6 Jabals on there, and all they do is just rotate across the corals, and the flow is completely random, but it's just amazing. And as soon as I put that in, before I could, the front part of the corals where the flow was hitting them was a bit brown. The back part was, you get polyp extension. Sometimes you put the smooth skins in, they strip. There are all these sorts of issues, and then literally I put these in, blow them across the other, facing each other, but across the tank, not front to back. And I got my Biz Cannons doing random front to back, and it doesn't matter what I put in my tank, how much I fill it, I've got enough flow, and that's what's made the difference. And I was talking to Mark Ocean Sea Wave at Acro as well, and I've got a few of his in my frag tank. It's a 5x5 frag tank, believe it or not. And it did the same thing in there. I had an MP60s on the base of it, just flowing, keeping the flow. And I added these across the corals, and they just suddenly whipped into shape. So I'd recommend those to anyone. And I just literally working with Mark, and so is Christian from
I've just
from
seen
Signature Frags. Yeah. Right, so he's just changed his pumps. He's got these pump rotators, which he'll show you. And I've got some prototype as well, and I've got it here actually. I've got to set it up on the, but it's like, here it is. Here it is.
Yep. Yeah.
Prototype, but it's a big beefy thing, this, and it's got the remote on it. But this and this is the big beefy Jabal pump, and this but the different about this is now, although I've got those on there, I can't pulse. I can't pulse them, so I can't get a wave. But these this is so beefy, and it's got such a big motor in here that I can pulse it, and I can get a wave motion. And I don't know if you guys saw the video from on Reefer's network with Dong talking about wave motion. So basically, you set this on a wave mode, and it alternates the flow, and it's just crazy. This is what you need to get.
Made a real difference.
Day and night. So if anyone's setting up, everyone's struggling, get a couple of those in your tank. And if you're keeping SPS, you might not need it for LPS, but that's next level for flow, and it made the difference in this tank, and it made a difference in my 5x5 frag tank behind it. So that's what I would do now for flow, then no question. So don't underestimate flow. If SPS, you've got to get your flow right. And you can't hit the corals with it. It has to be random, which is why this is so good. So even if you hit the coral with this, it's just for a period of time, and it goes and hits something else and comes back. And that's it. Just makes so much difference. You can see this sometimes. Take a coral out and put it back in, and you see the slime coming off, and you just watch the slime just go all over the. It clears it so straight away, and the food as well distributes it in seconds across the tank. So that's what that's the next thing, I think, the flow. But it's the basics in the light. So I changed. I don't know if you've seen. I've got Strattons now. If you look back on my videos, you see I had Radion's Gen 6 blues I had before. I've got these pros now. Which
Strattons are they? Stratton Pros.
These not the X's. They're not the X's. These are the Gen 2 Pros.
Are they the squares? I see them.
No, these are the biggest size. These I've got 12 of the rectangular big ones. The X are square, and two things. The LEDs I think are slightly newer on the X, but I don't think you don't need more than what this gives you. But the form factor on this meant that I could actually put them on, because I'd have to get I had to get something like 20 of the X's or something crazy, and I just couldn't get them. I'd have to reach over on the tank, so just about managed to get these up. Imran came over and helped me, and we just about managed. 8 foot across, you reach 4 foot into the tank to try and. Do you know what I mean? So we managed to get them up, but it's like a canopy over the whole tank, so it illuminates part.
It's complete coverage, as in
and it illuminates the tank, that you can see every little last bit of the rock and the corals, and they're getting light from all angles. So from that point of view, they're really nice. They work to treat, and you think the spread that you get on the Gen 6s, it's much better than the spread on the Gen 6s. So and the color's pretty nice, but it's just a small unit. And so that's why I put loads of them across the tank. But now I look, and it might be because I've raised them up, but there's light in places where I didn't realize there wasn't light. Even though you measure it and the par's pretty decent across the tank, you can now see that there's bits of the tank that are lit up that I didn't realize that weren't really lit up.
So on my Acro tank, I had what are they called? The Evergrows. Like the Chinese black box lights, and they were 2 4-foot strip lights, and they covered the whole tank. And that was the one thing I noticed instantly. The difference was that you could see parts of your corals that you couldn't see before, which is amazing for you to look at. But also, obviously, it means that they're getting light in parts of the coral that they weren't before, everywhere basically. But it looks awesome.
Yeah. And I'm starting now. It's only 2 weeks now, but I'm starting to see some growth on bits of corals that were a bit dormant, and this or parts of the coral, certain parts tips are, big colonies. Certain tips are more colourful, and other tips are not so. And then suddenly those tips are suddenly springing up, and then tips are going the other way. So that there are little bits and bobs that I've noticed that made a difference. And it might be just that there's a change. I don't know, but I really like these lights. There's something in them. But yeah, it's the state basics, isn't it? Light, flow, do it right, do it from the start. You can afford to build it up.
You've talked about like doing the basics and getting light and flow right and all that sort of stuff, but actually it's not easy to do that. But the one thing I notice with anyone I talk to who's got an amazing Acro tank is the amount of effort they put into it. It's all well and good saying making sure your parameters are stable, but what that actually means is you're testing all the time, and if things change, you act on it straight away. And if your calculator pump dies, you replace it, and you do everything straight away. You're always on it, so it's the amount of work that goes into it. I think
that's the thing that comes with experience, though. So you know these things. You can't leave it till 3 days time if your calculator pump goes. And if you're monitoring your pH all the time, I know for Imran will text me and say, "Oh, my calc ran out overnight, my pH dropped, and it's it's first thing in the morning." So and he's before work, he's on it and he's changed it, he's fixed it. So it's not you're absolutely right that with experience things that you can leave and things that you can't. And again, it's still the basics. The heart of your system, you can't mess with it. And again, a bit like redundancy, you may have a pump, return pump fails. What do you do? Well, you've got one sat next to it and you plug that one in. And so that experience tells you, yes, you need a backup pump, because if your return pump fails, you're screwed.
So that actually, this weekend I've had an issue. So my Red Sea auto top off died a couple of days ago, and so it's just the sensor isn't reading, so it doesn't know what level the water is. So I'm manually going into the app and telling it to dose water, which is a massive pain.
But don't forget, just get a jug and pour it in.
Well, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So it's just exactly that. Just making sure, but you don't. I mean, I was having problems. I got this Royal exclusive sump, and it was fantastic, bells and whistles and whatnot. But actually, I had this capacitive auto top up sensor, and the sensor used to stick on. And so then I just ditched it, and I had this top of the range auto top off system. And I just ditched it, and that's part of the reason I eventually went on to calc, because I worked out what my evaporation was, and then I was just dosing the same amount. So actually, rather than auto top off, just dosing it is safer.
Do you not have an auto top off at all?
No, I don't. I know. I told you I evaporate 55 liters a day, and I put 55 liters of calc into my sump, and I've got a sump level. And I look at that every morning.
You check it
every morning. I look at that sump level, and I know. And if it drops down, I'll put a bit more calc in, because it's not going to shoot my alk up, but it'll get it'll adjust the pH a little bit, and adjust the calc will go up a tiny bit. But it's not a major shift. But obviously the risk of that is your salinity might drift, which is why we get lazy about salinity. We always forget it, but that's probably the most important thing. All your iodine levels, everything is based on your salinity, not just your alk and your calcium, all your minerals and your zinc, and all the bits that all the advanced reefers worry about is based on your salinity. So it's all well and good dosing, all these little tiny bottles, but if you're not checking your salinity, so
What would you test your salinity with? Refractometer?
Yeah, so I right from the start I had the Hannah, the bench, the Milwaukee one, and the Hannah one. So I got the original Hannah one. Yeah. So I use that. The pens are a bit dodgy, and then I've got the. So it's more about keeping, setting your level and keeping it to roughly that level. It's not about the exact. Yeah, that's one. So it's not about the. Yeah. It's not about the exact salinity level. It's about whatever it is. So if you're 10% off with your meter, then stay 10% off, but keep it at that level, whatever it tells you. If it tells you it's 1026 and you might be 1025, fair enough. But if you're keeping it at 1026 according to your meter, and the ICP might tell you it's 1025, that's fine, because it's at that level and it's not drifting. Just don't let it drift. And that's the same thing with your alk. And I have the same theory about phosphate and nitrate, nutrient. Don't let them drift suddenly. If you crash your phosphate, you're going to get a problem. Just as much as you'll get a problem with your alk, and we're all worried about alk, and it shot up to 11, what am I going to do? Or it drops to 5, what am I going to do? The same with phosphate. If you strip your phosphate out, your tank's going to crash. And I think we underestimate that with phosphates. But yeah, salinity is number one. Everyone should be checking it properly. And I've got a backup. You know, the TM, is it the Tropic Marine, the high sensitivity glass one?
Yeah, the bobbing hydrometer.
So I mean, that's supposed to be the gold standard, really. But I use the one that you've got there. And,
so supposedly with that, you don't ever need to calibrate it. It just works basically. And but it's a bit more of a faff. That's the problem.
I know you got. So the difficulty I used to have with it is that I could only look down into my sump. I couldn't look across it when I had my previous tank, and so I couldn't really. You know, you have to sort of judge it on the level. Yeah, so you have to sort of look into the tank to be able to see. So it's fine to put it into your main tank and then just look into it.
Yeah,
but yeah, everything's got a little niggle. But the meter that you got there, I've used that for years. I've had it for my old tank, and I've still got it, and it works fine. So that's what I use. And every couple of days, few days, I'll just test it.
So you had issues with the Hannah salinity pens. Mine worked brilliantly for about 18 months, and then it packed up basically. You said you had issues with yours.
Just every so often it doesn't read what I think it should read, and I test it with the meter, and so I just stopped using it. I've got it. Yeah. It's just sat next to my tank. So it was nice to use because you dip it in, you've got it reading it. Exactly. But actually, if it tells you the wrong number, it's probably a negative thing. So I don't use it
massively. Yeah, because if you then start adjusting your salinity based on the wrong number.
Exactly, and you probably do more harm by thinking you've got the wrong salinity when actually
exactly. Which is I've done that,
and
because
it
of the
drift.
test.
The connection's a lot better now, guys. So I'm back.
Oh, brilliant.
Nice.
There's a VPN issue.
You got your neighbours. You tapped into your neighbours.
Exactly.
Donald's Wi-Fi.
Oh god, that was a nightmare. Yeah. So talking about salinity, I do the same thing. I don't have an auto top off. So I just dose my maximum saturation of calc every day, which is about 12 liters. And I've got a fan. I've got a fan on it as well at the moment. So I'm just trying to evaporate as much as possible, so I can dose as much calc water as possible to keep that pH up. Which is, I'm getting. Go on.
Did you get the same fan?
No, I've got this old fan. Actually, I was just looking at it today. It's really rusty. I need to replace it.
I was going to say you're just dripping your iron into the tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I need to get a replacement for that. I might get what you've got there. But
mine is it's a plastic one. I got it from Amazon, but it's really good. None of them are silent, but it's actually quite low noise, and there's a lot of air that circulates through, and the evaporation is it's almost double. I got 2 of them on there, but it's almost double. And now what I've done,
dehumidifier on there as well.
Yeah. So now what I've done, so when without the circulators on at night, it's really cold now. So and I've got this glass. The back end of the room is glass. So basically, I get a lot of condensation, and the dehumidifier can't quite keep it up if I've got the circulators on. So what I do is I've just put them on my Apex, and I run them. I put a temperature setting on there, so if the tank gets too cold, I'll switch them off, and then I switch them off at night.
I was going to say your heaters must be on a lot more because of that.
No, I don't have any. So my heaters never comes on.
Oh really?
Yeah, because I've got that many lights on. Yeah,
right.
It's a warm room. Yeah, but I open the doors to ventilate the room, and so that I can lock them open.
It was the same with your old tank. I think with such a big tank, big water volume, it doesn't lose heat as quick. With a small tank like mine, my temperature's dropping.
Yeah, maybe. But yours goes through the
it goes underground as well.
Pipe, so maybe that's contributing to it. But mine,
definitely.
Keeps its heat. So it's more about trying to cool it down than heat it up, even in the winter. So I open the doors and it keeps the temperature down. And when the lights are on at night, I obviously shut the doors. And it cools the tank down at night. But I've got the dehumidifier heats the room as well. So I've got a nice balance, and it works.
There's a couple of member questions that I wanted to ask. Actually, you were talking about stability, and there's a question that is we constantly talk. This is from Malman. we constantly talk about stability in our reef tanks, but after a recent incident where I left my auto top off and a very low swing in alkalinity, it made me think that maybe we overthink stability. I have a mixed reef, nano reef with softies, LPS and SPS, nothing changed. So I think the issue there is there's a difference between stability and resilience, because corals are actually pretty resilient. So if they have one incident, like Imran, your calcium went down to 200 not that long ago.
220.
And yeah, it was generally everything was okay. And that you can have issues like that and everything will be fine. But the point is, if you're doing that all the time and your parameters are all over the place, the corals are constantly fighting. So they might not die, but they're putting all their energy into surviving, basically. So that's why you need everything to be stable.
Well, Mo's old tank, when I used to look after that, the ALK used to swing like 1 DKH every day. So you had to make sure you're testing it at the same time. When I used to go over and look after this tank, if I'm going at 6 p.m., the ALK would be bang on 7.58, whatever it's supposed to be. If I went at 8 in the morning before work, I'll be panicking, thinking, what's happening to the calcs? So some tanks can take 1 DKH swing is nothing really.
Well, do you know what though? That's the thing that with auto ALK testers have shown us that, because before we had them, no one was testing their alkalinity every hour, and suddenly now you can see that stuff swings. I bet back in the day before alkalinity testers were available, ALK swings were much bigger. It doesn't seem to cause any problems.
And now we've got the testers. We're not allowing that swing as much because we think we need to keep it rock solid. So when it's slowly going down, we're dosing to keep it up. And when it's going up, we want to keep it down. We're trying to keep it so in such a small therapeutic window, if you like. But I think a swing is acceptable. 1 DKH swing is fine. It's actually good for the corals.
Yeah, 1 DKH is nothing. I mean, if I always look at what certain reefers might do. So there might, you look on back in the day, it was Reef Central or Reef to Reef, and you'll see somebody have a really nice tank. I can't remember, was it Jackson's Reef back in the day? Somebody, when we were all like 0.03 phosphate is the highest you could have. You got to have 0 phosphate, got to have 0 nitrate, 0, that's it. And then somebody would have 0.0. Oh, okay, well, we do some more water changes, or you're being lazy. And then somebody turned up. I'm pretty sure it was Jackson's. It was Jackson's tenuous, and he showed the first rainbow tenuous on Reef Central, and it's like, oh my god, what's that? And he said, oh, it's this, and then it was just talking about, oh, what are your nitrates? There must be 0. Your nitrates and phosphates. Oh no, my phosphate's like 1 or something. Yeah. Or nitrate's 50, and then nobody would believe him.
Nobody believed him.
And then and then they absolutely wouldn't, and they wanted to go to his house to check the water because they said he's lying. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's Jackson, and that was one of the first rainbow tenuous that was around. I might be wrong if it's his reef, but I might be confusing things. But there was some people with fantastic SPS tanks that suddenly said, "Oh, actually, I don't really do water changes, and I these are my." So if somebody can get away with something and has got a nice tank, then there is a way that can work. So there isn't a magic recipe. So the same thing then goes for swings. You can get away with swings, but if you're swinging every day, eventually you're not going to get away with it. And each time you might say, well, your coral will lose a bit of color. So let's just say that, for example. So you get away with one, your tenuous may have lost one of the colors. And then you do it again, well, it'll lose another color. You do it again, well, it's just green. And then you do it again, well, it's brown. You do it the 5th time, well, it's dead. Is that sort of thing, is that you'll get away with it a couple of times, but you're not going to consistently get away with it. So then if you look over Imran's shoulder and see all those different pretty colors, you think, well, he seems to keep it consistent pretty much all the time. And that's how you get a tank like that. It doesn't just happen overnight. But those are the messages. But you ask him his ALK level, you ask him his nitrate level, or you ask him his phosphate level, he'll tell you what it was yesterday and tell you what it was today. And that's the kind of thing that he is on top of. And you ask him his temperature and he'll know it. And you ask him his radion settings and he'll know them. And those are the things that you eventually build up to, and they may be different in different tanks, but eventually in everyone else's tank, your biology will mature and you'll have a similar tank. If you keep the
when I set up this tank, my knowledge was 100 nitrates, you're going to have brown corals. If your phosphate's over 0.03 or 0.1, if it's higher than that, your corals will start to brown out. I had phosphate as 2.0 and a nitrate of 130, and I was looking at them. I think my test kits must be wrong. I can't be having this bright color red, this cetose, or this bright colors and looking like low nutrient system. So there's something more to it than just low nutrients. It's a balance between them, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you can keep low nutrients, but like I was saying, that if you're going to keep lower nutrients, well, don't blast them with light. Use a little bit less light.
Yeah, there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
The other two questions were this one was from Pickles Reef, who says, I've always focused on soft and LPS tanks. I understand that acros need different rate of flow. Could you talk me through that? What should I be aiming for? You've talked about flow, having a lot of flow, but what is a lot of flow in an acro tank?
This confused me for a long time, actually. What is a lot of flow and what's good flow? What's a lot? Everyone says just blast your corals, right? So you need lots of flow. And unless you're explained what that means, where you see it, you don't realize. But if you just zoom in on a coral and you just film it for say 2 minutes and you're watching the polyps, they're going that way, then they're going that way, then they're going that way, then they're going that way. They're not just staying in the same place, and they're not just getting blasted one way. So the corals, the polyps, sorry, you want them to be waving just like the LPS torch corals wave. But when you look at an SPS, if it's just getting majority flow from one side, it's not gonna like it. It doesn't matter. It's high flow, but it's not gonna like it.
That's what I was telling you, Alex. When Imran, I think he was off. When I was telling you, when I put these on, Imran knows the difference these made to my tank.
Oh yeah, massive.
And we had the biz cannons thinking, when I started up thinking, I won't see any pumps. It'll be on the back wall, and there'll be nothing, no pumps in my tank.
Yeah, huge flow.
It'd be great. And the flow was amazing, but we always thought, well, all that I'll put that coral in, and all the front of it stripped, and more. But the flow must be fine. Even after all this experience, you look at it and you think, well, it's a peninsula tank, and you've got to get the flow through. You've got to rip the flow. But actually, the flow from the cannons was just too much for the corals to take, because it was coming back as a tidal wave across the middle of the tank. Whenever I put a smooth skin in the middle of the tank, this is early days when the tank couldn't sustain the corals as well. The smooth skins would strip, and if I put a purple stylo in there, it would be fine. But then you started seeing that the front part of the stylo wasn't as healthy as the back part of the stylo. So the bit that was facing the wave was sort of battered a bit more. So that's why we started slowing the pumps down. We realized that actually the corals aren't battered as much. And then that's when we started observing the polyps a bit more, even in my tank. And then when we put these pumps on, and then now you look at my polyps, they're just randomly waving all over every single one. And even now, when I look at my tank to make sure that there's enough flow, because you put the jabals on and then they'll get algae around them, and they started off with amazing flow, and they'll probably go to about half in a few months. And I don't necessarily pull them out to give them a toothbrushing or whatever. I just leave them, but I put the pump up, and if I find at 100% I don't think the flow is enough, then I might take them out and give them a good old cleaning. But it's actually looking at them corals, and when the polyps are out, just looking make sure they're flowing in all directions. That's the key, and that's why I think this is a no-brainer. If you want a no-brainer, you work out the pump size for your tank, but actually put those on, and don't direct any flow at a coral. So push it upwards, so it goes up, rips the surface, so you get good gas exchange, which is good for your pH and is good for oxygenation, and also good for getting rid of your waste. But it's ripping upwards, and then the flow from underneath is you're getting this upwelling, and it's going across the tank. And if you've got them on both sides of your tank, the flow is completely random, and if they're at different speeds, they'll be hitting corals at all different ways. That's why these just make massive.
But what you really want is you want as many power heads as is physically possible in the tank. But the problem is, because then you've got flow from everywhere. But then the problem is your tank looks ugly. So you've got to.
But look at this. Look at that on the live stream. It's like they're just spinning. But actually,
what's more important?
Come and see my tank. When you look at the tank and you don't really notice them, because they're like,
what I saw at Aquatic Emporium. Sue's got the closed loop system. She's got she's got pumps, and they come over the back, and then she's got them placed at all different places in the tank. So it's just giving random flow under the rocks. They're all invisible under her sand. The pipes go underneath the sand and just come up somewhere on the other side.
The only problem with that sort of closed loop system is if you get a tank that grows in like Imran's has grown in now, and you've got, let's say, 6 outlets, there'll be a few, the corals restrict the flow. And the problem then ultimately with that is that it worked nicely for up to a certain stage, and then you look back in the day as well. You look at tanks that had closed loops, and most of them eventually ended up with a
You end up with wave
away
makers,
somewhere.
Yeah.
And you find that actually there's detritus builds up in that corner. Well, what do you do when detritus builds up there? You've got to put a wave pump in. So I was tempted with my previous tank to do what David Saxby did, because what Sue's done is the same as what David Saxby did with his big tank, is an up and over closed loop. And I set it up and then took it out again, because I just thought, I can't be asked to do a rockscape over the top of the pipes.
So this is
I don't know if Imran ever saw it.
And then with
I did see that.
pipes exiting everywhere.
Yeah, but the way I did it, I did a up and over return on the base of the tank, and then I basically put the random flow generators, and aimed them around the rocks, and it was going about 6 foot from the back of my previous tank right towards the front, and there's 2 big pipes, 50 mil pipes with loads of exits on there, and that was going to be my closed loop. But I didn't drill the tank to do it. It was just coming as a return. And the way that
it looked amazing, and then you took it all out.
It was, and then I kind of regretted it, and then but I kind of got talked into buying that. That was when I bought the first iteration of the Abyss cannon, and it was a I've still got it. It was an Abyss pump, and they were called Triton in those days, and it was a propeller, and it was a patented propeller, and the person who made my ceramics, Torsten, patented this propeller, but he gave me it before he patented it. And and he told me not to tell anyone, and I accidentally put a picture of it on my thread. And then when he saw it, he just went crazy. He said, "I haven't patented it yet, and you're giving away my propeller secret." And he used to make them for commercial enterprises. So it was a big thing. So I had to edit the photograph and black out the picture. It might still be on Ultimate Reef, but that was the theory was, look, you don't need pumps anywhere. Hide a single pump, you won't see it. And it worked out then that the flow was then a bit direct as well. So I ended up putting tonsies in and having that big flow pump. So yeah, it's a nice system, but everything eventually, when you fill out with corals, you're gonna have to add pumps. So although I started off with that big Triton pump doing all of the flow in my big tank, I ended up I remember I drilled the ceramics on the side, put 8 MP60s in there. And I ended up eventually, I had 8 MP60s and 4 tonsies. And I had 1 ton that I used to get detritus in the back right corner of the tank. Yeah, so I just basically dangled a tonsie in there, and it was just
dangling off the cord. It's like the oscillating one in the back.
Yeah, and it was just, and it was there for a good couple of years, and it just used to get rid of the detritus in that corner. So I had no detritus anywhere in the tank. But I ended up with 8 MP60s. This big pump, which was supposed to be the only pump that I would need. It was a massive, it's like a Abyss A400 with a propeller on it. And what else did I have? I had 2 Abyss A400 returns, which were Tritons in those days. But yeah, I had a huge amount of, but I never tried these, and these are really. I mean, you can see them obviously. They're dangling there, but.
Well, you had a set of those back in the day as well, but I don't think you ever put them on.
Yeah, I didn't. I bought one from Tank Shutdown. I've still got it actually. It was the German one. What was it called?
Sea Swirl?
No, it wasn't Sea Swirl. It was Aussie Motion. It had this metal thing. It had this metal thing, and it had this motor on it, and the motor would go around, and this metal thing would make the other thing loop around like that, and it would just rotate your tonsie. You put tonsie on it, and so I bought it because there's a Tank Shutdown when I got my skimmer, and he had it on his tank, and he gave it to me, but I never eventually set it up because I couldn't put it on the brace of my old tank. But anyway,
so Tonsi have just brought one out as well. It's not available.
Yeah.
It's called the Orca.
Not yet. Yeah.
No, it does the same.
But Mark's doing but Mark's gone another level now. So you can't on these things. The problem with these are beefy, but basically, we're talking about waves and adding, having random flow and then having a wave just blowing through your corals. That wave motion takes a lot of detritus away, and you can actually set it that you can't on these because it basically breaks the housing for it. So Mark's just working on one, and the Christian's got it that will allow you to have a wave and have the random flow.
Because that's on the one. So I got one to have a look at, and it's just the pump has to be on constant just constant
Yeah.
mode 100% all the time.
Yeah.
But these
So-
ones you're saying it can pulse.
It's upgraded, and the
'Cause it was
motors.
the rod wasn't strong enough to take it, but they've
that's
So he's
right.
basically beefed everything up and got a really,
interesting.
really strong.
I've seen
motor on
it. I've seen it. He posted up a video recently, maybe today.
It was on
or
Instagram.
yesterday.
A couple of days ago.
And he had a wave going as well as the.
There you go. That's it. Yeah. So
There you go.
Christian's helped him develop it as well.
Interesting.
And so I think Christian will have it all over his farm. But that tells you a story if Christian's going to put it on signature frags. You know. Yeah. But anyway, we'll see what happens with it. But that's what
Also,
I recommend to somebody worried about flow.
I think the one thing that helps in my tank is I've got 2 MP60s and 2 MP40s on either side, and 3 times a day they go on 100% for 5 minutes. They just blast everything around, so it just makes like a washing machine effect in the tank. Or just try is up in the water column and it goes over the overflow. So I think throughout the day it's really random. I don't have like reef crest, or I don't set it to one setting. It's just changing every hour. It's a different setting on there, so they're completely random.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have just hit basically the 2-hour mark. We're more or less there anyway. So I think we're gonna wrap it up there. But it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed tonight. I've learned loads, and it's been great having you on. Imran, it was nice when you got your audio
finally
in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But even without that, it was great. I really enjoyed it. So thank you both for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Lovely. All right. Cheers for watching, guys. I'll catch you next week.